Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Take Back My Brain. I am your host and functioning nutritional therapist, Laurie Hammer. So welcome back. Today we're going to talk about diversity in the gut. So really, what does that mean? Well, we have lots of different, I like to call them bugs in our gut. So we have a lot of different bugs in our gut, and there's friendly ones, there's unfriendly ones, and then there's ones that are not so, they're just kind of like neutral, like you just don't, they're there, they're doing their thing, but they don't really do as much as the other ones do. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense or not, but we've got three different kinds: good, bad, and the ugly, right? So maybe not quite that bad. Anyway, so what I want to talk about is, why is diversity really, really important? And the importance of gut diversity is, when you have a very good, diverse gut and you have strong, healthy of the good guys in your gut, when they're strong and they're healthy, that means your immune system is strong. That means your brain is strong. That means your gut health is strong and your body is strong as a whole. So microbiome in the gut, and actually everywhere in your body, is so key to overall health. So if your gut is off, your health is going to be off. So that's why I really want to talk about this. And I want you to think about it in the terms of soil. So do we have any gardeners out there, or do you understand how gardening is done? If you have an unhealthy soil, is the plant going to grow well? No, it's not, right? And so the more nutrients you put in it, the more diversity that goes on in the soil, because you don't want to plant the same thing all the time in the same spot in your garden, because you're not going to get a good produce at the end of that unless you fertilize it, unless you add things to it, and then you get a stronger, healthier plant. It's the same thing in our gut. So if we if we nourish, that's what I mean to say, if we nourish our gut well, if we nourish our bodies well with a lot of different foods and those kind of things, then our microbiome is much happier. So that's kind of like the soil in our gut, the soil in our body. So let's talk about a few things why that's important, because we have to have a lot of different kinds in our gut. So when our diversity is low, that's when our health is going to be low. So there's lots of tests out there that can test, what's your microbiome look like? Do you have a lot of these? Do you have a lot of lactobacillus? Do you have a lot of Pseudomonas? Do you have a lot of E. coli? And a lot of these things are naturally imbalanced. So E. coli doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing in our gut, because it should be imbalanced. It naturally lives there. So what happens is, when the terrain in our gut, the soil in our gut, is out of balance, and that E. coli can raise the bad pieces of it can grow, that's when everything becomes imbalanced, and that's when we get sick with diarrhea and gas and digestion as bloating. Or maybe you even have a condition called SIBO, which is small intestinal bowel overgrowth, which means that certain bacteria have migrated into an area that they're not supposed to be, because our body is trying to find balance, right? So when things are inflamed and things are out of balance, the body tries to compensate, and sometimes that compensation is very uncomfortable. So that's when you're going to get the hardness in the gut, you're going to get the gas, you're going to get the bloating, you're going to get some disruption that's actually quite uncomfortable. And then we're going after this one piece, when we really have to look at the root cause of everything else. And so those are things that can happen when that diversity is low. When your diversity is high, your gut feels yummy and happy, and you don't have gas, you don't have bloating, you don't have diarrhea or constipation and those types of things. So a lot of times we just live with those conditions just because, oh, grandma has it, mom has it, my friend Sally has it, my friend Julie has it, my friend Jody has it, my husband has it, my kid has it. And so people just have gut issues. Well, that might be common, but that doesn't mean it's healthy, and that's not the way we were designed to function. So let's talk a little bit about what things come out of having a not diverse gut microbiome. So we're going to have inflammation. That can be inflammation from head to toe, not just in the gut. So sometimes the inflammation will show up in our joints. Sometimes we'll break out in a rash. Sometimes we have a fungus that's an overgrowth. Sometimes we get anxiety and depression. Maybe an autoimmune condition will develop, say like Hashimoto's, or maybe some brain conditions like dementia or MS. Those types of things can develop when the microbiome, not just in our gut, but in our body as a whole, is out of balance. And so what do these microbes actually do? Well, there's like trillions of them in our body. There's 10 times more, bazillions times more than there are cells in our body. And so we actually need them in order to survive. So if we were actually sterile inside, we would die. And that's how important these microbes are, because guess what they do? They actually produce B vitamins for us. They help us digest our food. They help with the pathway. They're like little messengers. You pass the sandbag, to help things along. If you're all in a line, they're kind of like little messengers that are like passing the message from the gut to the brain, and maybe from the brain to our hormones. They create enzymes in our body, lots of different enzymes, not just digestive enzyme, but enzymes for just metabolic processes. So when they're low, these little guys in our body are low, that's when we have an increased risk of, say, diabetes. We have a hard time with our metabolism. When your microbiome in your gut is really off, that's when you're going to tend toward weight gain and obesity. So when we have a healthy microbiome, we're going to stay slim and trim, right? And so what are some things that actually disrupt the microbiome? There's going to be quite a few of them, actually. So if you've been on antibiotics a lot, I was on a lot of antibiotics as a kid, and constipation has always been a challenge for me. I'm the best that I've ever been, but I would say because my microbiome was so disrupted by all the antibiotics I was on, and I was also a bottle-fed baby. I was on formula. So I never got that really great inoculation from breastfeeding. A lot of times babies are born C-section, and so they don't get that microbiome inoculation as they're coming out of the vaginal canal either. So they're already born deficient. And so we're kind of setting up our kids, my generation included, because breastfeeding was not in vogue at the time, unfortunately, for a lot more gut issues that are going on. Glyphosate is a huge issue for the gut. So glyphosate is what they spray on genetically modified foods to kill weed, in particular like corn and beans. And so where I live in Iowa, we just kind of finished glyphosate season, is like I like to call it, because it's just like sprayed everywhere. It's in the air, it's in the soil. It's like you can't avoid it. And what glyphosate does is actually bores holes into your intestines. So it causes leaky gut. And then you combine that with a genetically modified food on top of that, and you combine other stressors, and then your body is just set up for kind of a disaster, unfortunately, in the microbiome. And so we've got, I just have a client that the young lady, she was just diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Why did she get ulcerative colitis? She's very active. She's very healthy. She's a positive young lady. I think a lot of it had to do with just the food that she was eating, and, cumulative over time, and the fact that we live where we live. Her body just didn't have the resilience to overcome all that. And so ulcerative colitis expressed itself. And so now we kind of have to unwind, heal that gut again, rebalance her microbiome so that her body can maintain that healing. And she's going to have to be really strict for a long time, because she's sensitive to so many different kinds of foods now. What else disrupts our microbiome? Monoculture animals. What I mean by that is these animals that are just eating grain. So they don't have a diverse diet. So just like we need a diverse diet, because us eating not very many foods actually creates an imbalance in our gut. So we need to eat animals that are also eating a diverse diet. So that's why it's really important to eat like grass-fed, pastured animals, because they've eaten well, and they're healthier, and they're stronger. And then you are what you eat, and then you are what you digest. So you want to make sure that you're putting in the best food possible. And that brings me to us not having a diverse diet. How many of you out there are like, I eat toast and orange juice and a banana and 2 eggs for breakfast every day, and then I have a salad for lunch, usually with chicken or tuna, and then for supper, we have like 3 meals that we rotate. Snacks are always like maybe some nuts or a granola bar. You have no diversity. So now is the perfect time, as we're into the summer months, is to go to your farmer's market and try some new vegetables. Like I'm always trying to put in new greens and new veggies and those types of things. And then that creates different fibers, different vitamins and nutrients to nurture and to grow that microbiome into what we want it to be. We want to grow it into this beautiful garden beautiful garden. Another thing is to, not only diversify your food, but diversify the types of diet you're on. So I love to do keto. If you follow me, you know that keto is fun. I do carnivore a few times a year where I'm just eating meat. And then, I'll go into eating, like right now, I would definitely not want to do carnivore because it's such great veggie season. So I want to make sure I'm getting a wide diversity of veggies in right now. So never eat the same diet all the time. Don't eat the same foods all the time. That's why, historically people just ate seasonally because we didn't have all the food preservation methods and stuff that we have. But that helped the microbiome to stay a lot healthier. And so they were actually stronger. If you look at the bones of people, 100 years ago, think about the ears and the facial setting of, say, your great great grandparents. Go back and look at pictures, because a lot of them had really big ears, they had a bigger nose, they had a wider face. They just had a deeper and a stronger bone structure because their diet was just whole foods. They weren't inundated with toxins. They had a diversity that kind of lasted throughout the year. They had other things that affected them that, we have science and stuff now that helps us with that. But I would just say that their food was better than our food at that time. But we can certainly work around that. So stress can decrease your microbiome. So that's going to be chemical, physical, or emotional stress. So if you have maybe a death in the family, or you got married. I had a client one time where she was doing great. She got married and she totally crashed. Her gut was a mess and she could barely function. Why? Because it was a stress. I mean, it was a happy stress, but it was just a lot of stress at one time. And so there's all these different types of emotions that can play in. A lot of people struggle with infertility. Maybe it's an emotional issue. So those are things that we need to, reel back and just kind of address. Chemical would be like we're talking about glyphosate. Maybe you have some chemicals in your house that you use. Maybe the things that you're putting on your body are disrupting your microbiome. So unless you're using an all natural product, say for your hair, your skin, fluoride, when you're brushing your teeth, fluoride disrupts the microbiome, which it'll kill it. Chlorine will actually kill it. So if you're not drinking, filtered water, chlorine will actually kill some really healthy microbiome microbes in your gut. So those are things to pay attention to. Liver toxicity, toxins. So we want to make sure that our liver is clear, because we once the liver gets full, it's like this bucket that's overflowing. Once our body gets full of toxin, it just overflows. And then we have all of these symptoms that show up. And so then we kind of gravitate towards treating the symptoms. So we have a skin rash. We treat the skin rash. Well, what's the root cause of the skin rash? Let's go back to the microbiome. And then we're like, why is the microbiome disrupted? And then we have to go to remove the source of the stress in your body. A lot of pasteurized and processed foods will disrupt the microbiome. So if you're eating a lot of packaged foods, or if you eat out a lot, if you're eating at McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or a lot of different types of restaurants, you may be eating a lot of foods that will disrupt your microbiome. So not that I have anything against those restaurants. I'm just saying that they're not the healthiest, and they're not going to serve your gut very well, or your microbiome for that matter. So what can we do to reduce that inflammation in our gut, to increase our microbiome diversity? So we're going to eat a lot of different foods is going to be one of the things. So just go buy some different kinds of food. That's pretty easy, right? Switch up your greens. If you like this one salad mix, buy a different salad mix, and then try another salad mix, and then just start rotating them. Just pick one thing. If you're always eating eggs for breakfast, try adding some sausage to it. Not that you can eat your eggs for breakfast, but I wouldn't eat the exact same thing all the time. And make sure that eat as much food that you can prepare in your home, and try to buy things that are locally grown, that that they've done really good things to the soil. They don't have to necessarily be organic. There's people that I buy from that they're not certified organic, but I know what they do to their vegetables. I know what they do to their chickens and their beef and those types of things. And it's really good stuff. So you're going to have to do a little research. That'll take a little work, but it's going to pay off in the end. So we want to make sure we're eating foods that are grown in healthy soil. We're going to exercise. Diversify your exercise. Don't just run. If you're just doing one type of exercise, that actually disrupts the microbiome. Your body loves variety. Vary your diet, vary your exercise, all those types of things. Sleep. How many of you are not sleeping well? If you're not sleeping well, that's going to affect your microbiome. So we have to address the sleep issue. Intermittent fasting. We don't want to eat 6 times a day. We don't want to eat 20 times a day. A lot of people are consuming a lot of food throughout the day. And so our digestive tract never has time to rest. So don't snack. Just start there. Don't snack. And then when you're ready, move to an intermittent fasting lifestyle where you're just eating in this like 8-hour eating window. And then you have 16 hours for your body to rest and digest. Because if it's constantly digesting, it's never resting. And your body has to be able to rest in order to heal. And that's going to help your microbiome. And one of the best things we can do, and I'm super excited to offer this to you, is fermented foods. And I created my fermented foods cookbook for you. So that'll be in the show notes where you can order that. I'm so excited about it. I have a great price for you on it. So fermented foods, where you have a probiotic supplement, is going to give you billions. Probiotic foods have trillions of microbes of probiotics in them that they can put into your gut. So if you're eating, say, a quarter cup, 2 tablespoons to a quarter cup of probiotic foods with every meal, that can radically change your digestive system. So that's going to be like sauerkraut. And don't tell me you don't like sauerkraut unless you've tried actually raw fermented sauerkraut, because totally different than the one you're going to buy in the can. Okay. Say kimchi, kefir, yogurt, kombucha. There's kavita. There's all sorts of different things that you can make, chutneys, kvases. So that's all going to be in the cookbook. But it's so important, even if you don't want to make them yourself, but they're super easy and very inexpensive. But if you don't want to make them, you can find them at almost any grocery store now. You can at least buy fermented pickles and sauerkraut and maybe some kimchi, and then look for a really good yogurt that's grass-fed. Okay. So you can start there, but try out my cookbook because there's some really kid approved, hubby approved recipes in there that people just don't complain about. So they're really yummy. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say today. You know, it's so important that we reduce that inflammation in the gut. And so I just gave you some really great tips on how to do that, things that cause it. Post your comments below. Make sure you save this video, share it, like it, subscribe. I appreciate all of you listening. I want you all to have a healthy gut. So let me know what else you would like to learn, and we'll do another video on it. Thank you and have a blessed day, and I will see you in the next episode.